This episode will contain spoilers for Game of Thrones: The Long Night. I kind of wrote the show off until recently and just didn't even want to think about it. However, during season 2 of House of Dragon, we decided that we didn't want to wait until each week for the episode, so we started watching Game of Thrones again, and from the beginning. And I must say, on the second viewing, I loved the show so much more. It was such a better experience for me, because I, kind of looking back, realized that I only saw the show week to week, and I think there was even a few episodes, just a couple episodes that I missed along the way that I didn't realize that I'd missed. And so watching kind of binging the series this time, it was fun. I just really enjoyed it. I got so much more into the stories. I understood everything that was going on so much more, because we also watched the show with subtitles on, so we were able to understand what everyone was saying at all times. So yeah, me and my girlfriend, we just absolutely loved watching this the second time through. And honestly, I thought it was the last 2 seasons that were horribly written. It's really just season 8 that really feels like the gears have changed, and it just... Do you remember which season was your favorite? Before my second viewing, if you were to ask me, I probably would have told you that season 3 or 4 or maybe even 1 was my favorite season. But my goodness, season 6 is just banging. That was a fantastic season of television. Season 6 has so much to offer. Yeah, I just forgot how good the writing was in the show, and it's been an absolute joy going through it a second time. So yeah, there's my recommendation for now. But we just watched The Long Night, which is in season 8, last night, and it it's still pretty awful for the finale confrontation with the White Walkers, the big war that happens. And but on the second viewing, I was able to remember how everyone was saying how dark it was. You could barely see what was going on. That was my experience as well with this episode. And I remember me and my girlfriend were watching it on my 27-inch iMac computer screen. We had a good time watching it, but I still could barely see what was going on, and it was disappointing and everything. And this time I was able to crank up the brightness on my computer using the GeForce control panel, NVIDIA control panel. Just bumped up the brightness a little bit, adjusted the contrast, added a little bit of gamma, just tweaked it a little bit, and I could see everything so clearly, and it still looked great. It didn't look washed out or anything. So we were pretty stoked on that. And just everything looked so much better, and I really got to enjoy the episode's special effects a lot more. I gotta say, even though the episode is a big letdown as far as writing goes, I think this episode has some of the coolest shots that I've ever seen put to film. It's got some just incredible imagery in here that I was just kind of blown away last night watching it. I was like, wow, that is a really great shot. No, that's a great shot too. Daenerys and Jon Snow up on the mountain with their dragons, like overlooking the battlefield from really far away, and you just see the whole chunk there, Winterfell, and all the Dothraki and the Unsullied just in regiments and formations out front of the Winterfell. It just looks really, really cool. It doesn't look fake. I hate so much that the Dothraki just go charging in with their flaming swords, and then it's a cool image seeing the lights get snuffed out in the distance. They're all just watching all the swords get put out, and they're all dying, and it just seemed like such a waste of a force to just charge in like that blindly into the dark. They should have been catapulting. Why did they not start catapulting sooner and just lighting them up with those? And anyway, the imagery though of them, like the lights disappearing, is a cool choice. I do think that's very nice looking. when the walkers come charging in, and it's like weather is coming with them, and like the shadow of darkness is coming with them. It just looks so cool as they're approaching, like these big wide shots of the whole force of the White Walkers marching in. There's so many. It's almost like the White Walkers behave differently in this episode because they're doing like the World War Z zombie thing where they're like almost like water pouring. They're all just charging in, but like floating and like floating over top of each other, over top of their forces. It's just, before they're just walking and walking and walking, which I thought they would keep doing, but now they just like sprinting faster than any human could go. But one thing that's a real standout visual treat in this episode is the dragons just flying and breathing fire, and it looks so good. I forgot. I was saying that House of Dragon had some of the best dragon flying stuff, and it does. Just because it's like lots of it and fun in season 1 of House of Dragon, I should say. But man, I forgot how good this dragon stuff was looking here. I mean, obviously they had a big budget, but it's not just that the dragons looked good. It was like iconic shots, in my opinion. Just the way that they're just lighting up the battlefield, flying over, torching it. It looks so cool. And they do this thing. I think it's Jon is flying over to the Night King. It's gonna light him up with his dragon, and the Night King just calls in like a blizzard, thick snowstorm to block the dragons. And it's like what a powerful wizard! It's pretty cool. He's able to thwart off dragons by the weather. That's just, and I forgot that was what he did. And but something about the way these dragons are flying in this thick, like snowy storm arena, it just looks so cool. It's such a cool looking backdrop because the storm is almost, it's like evil. It's like thicker than a normal storm should be, the way the clouds are twisting towards them, and it just looks fun and exciting and action packed. And anyway, there's this one shot that I just absolutely adore when the dragons are above the clouds. They break above the storm, and Daenerys and Jon's dragons are just both flying together there for a minute, kind of maintaining the same altitude, just hovering above the clouds. And it's a super wide shot, and it looks so good. I just love that shot. It's beautiful, and I just don't know why we don't get more of that whenever dragons are involved in anything ever. We need to see them flying above the clouds like this. Like, they just look sick. I like how their tails dangle below. It's almost like a scorpion pose. It just looks great. Nice to be able to see it properly with the brightness cranked up a bit. So if you can figure out a way to do that on your computer, if you can watch it on your computer and use the NVIDIA control panel to adjust you gotta fiddle with it a bit because you can go too far and it makes it look, artifacts start appearing and gradients of colors start to get messed up. So you gotta tweak it right. Anyway, I always thought the Night King looked a little funny. He looked like a little annoying prick kind of, but in this episode for some reason he wasn't coming off that way. He just looked like a badass. Let's see here. There's a shot where the hand of a White Walker is like the fingers are in focus, and the face and head of the White Walker is out of focus, like 2 feet behind, and it just looks so cool. It's such a cool looking shot of a zombie, just in general, as far as like cool shots of zombies go. The zombie script that I'm writing is going to utilize this strategy a lot to save money on the budget and have the actual faces of the zombies out of focus, and yeah, it just helps cheat the makeup a little bit. So yeah, love that shot in particular. Very, very cool. Let's see, there was a few other shots as well in here. The shot where the dragon is just hovering and roasting the Night King and White Walkers. I think Daenerys comes and saves Jon at one point. I mean, how often do we get a ridiculously cool looking shot of a dragon just like keeping its altitude at the same spot and just torching everything? It just looks awesome. things being lit by fire always look really cool at nighttime. Although I really just watching the dragons like flap their wings and stay in one position in the air, like hovering like a helicopter, it does seem like the motion of the wings, like when you think about the physics of it, that it's not, I don't think it's fast enough to maintain that like hover, because it's like a heavy freaking beast, and it just seems like the flap that's going on wouldn't be able to, but it is a lot of surface area in the air that's pushing it. So I don't know, I'd like to see someone do a bit more of an in-depth detailed physics of how a dragon of that size, how much it would have to flap its wings to maintain height, like how light are its bones. And yeah, it's just an interesting thought that I thought maybe it doesn't look quite real, you know. Still, it looks great. I just thought, I had to go down that little rabbit hole thought, like, I wonder if it's actually flapping as much as it should be. If it could even be, you know, flying in that weight class of that size of wings and the amount of flappage. Anyway. And there's just, man, one thing I gotta say though about this episode that just made me chuckle again, I remember this from the first time seeing it years ago, is that there's like multiple times where people get absolutely surrounded and outnumbered by White Walkers, and then they're just like not dead later in the episode though. Like there's 2 times in this episode where Sir Brienne of Tarth, she got knighted. There's 2 times in this episode where she screams bloody murder as she's being overrun by White Walkers, and it gives you the impression she's being bit and being eaten. And then, but both times she's okay afterward. It's absurd. I just don't know why they would put that character into that position twice in an episode, and then she's just like fine. Same with Sam, gets like overwhelmed and it looks like he's being eaten. He's like, there's all these heads of the zombies in the shot, and he's not being eaten though, I guess. It's just everyone's got plot armor on. And so that really takes you out of it. It just, you know, this really lowers the stakes when no one's getting killed here. A lot of the atmosphere, I really liked how it was looking with the what's his name again? Daenerys' right-hand man, not the hand of the king.
Daenerys, allow me to serve you, my queen. I love you, but I've been friend-zoned forever. Jorah Mormont.
I love this character. He's so good. What a good actor, too. I wish we got more of him in this kind of right stoic role. He's got a cool face, too. He dies good as well. He's got a good death rate. The way he's holding his face as he's dying looks very much like he's, you know, in a lot of pain, and he's like struggling to be alive. So I guess he dies, so there are some stakes there. After he dies, I think it's here where she gets back on the dragon, I think, and she saves Jon, and then Jon goes running away, and she just has this moment where she just sits there watching him for a moment, and while she's doing this, there's like hundreds of zombies climbing up her dragon, and it just made me laugh, because I'm like, what is she doing? She's just staring at him running away, just having this moment of like freezing in the middle of absolute warfare. Or here zombies come climbing up my dragon, and it almost takes the dragon out. Like, it's a bloody close call, and it's like, what are you doing, Daenerys? Get off of the ground. There is a horde of zombies everywhere. Like, she's just staring off in thought that Jon running away, like, he's gone and he's all right. Okay. Yeah, kind of weak there. Just like weak character moment. Like, you got to be on the ball in the battle. And the episode before this long night is when they're all just quote unquote preparing for the battle, and I want to say quotes because then no one's preparing for the battle at all. Everyone's like drinking, and people are like, oh, I shouldn't drink, and they're like, it's our last night on Earth, what are you gonna do? And it's like, hold on, we have all these brilliant minds of experienced wars, and they're all finally together in this unique situation, and they're not all planning every possible moment to win this battle that they have the odds stacked against them. Why are they not spending every single moment planning their battle? Maybe if they had done that, they wouldn't have just sent the Dothraki in on a suicide mission to just go die in the darkness alone. So it just makes me laugh a little bit. I'm like, maybe you should have just stopped swapping stories and drinking wine all night. Maybe you should have been preparing for the battle and making smart decisions with your... Anyway, it's like almost like a metaphor for the episode itself. Like the writers were just having fun drinking and shooting the shit when they should have been planning the battle. Oh yeah, when the Night King and his major players, his posse, are coming into the werewood area of Winterfell, and they just round the corner. Again, I just wanted some like marching heavy metal music, like and they just like so badass marching in. Like I just feel like there's a lot of episodes in Game of Thrones that could just begging for some rock and roll, some heavy metal to be laid over top. You know, like those 80s vans that you see with like psychedelic like knights and like almost Conan the Barbarian kind of style artwork on it, but it's like heavy metal vibes and lightning and like swords and just cool stuff like this. There's some neat stuff there too. I really like how Arya, how her character arc comes around. Like she's such a cool character. In fact, I think Arya might be my favorite character in the whole show now. Jon is more solid than I remember him being. I'm like, yeah, okay, he's pretty great. But Arya is just, she's gone through so much, and she's, I don't know, she's just this really cool, badass, confident woman now. I really like her whole story and how she plays her character in the last 2 seasons. I do like how when the Night King is about to kill Bran, like the other like entourage guy of the White Walkers like looks over his shoulder, because and you see like his hair like blow a little bit, and it's like the wind rushing past him from Arya running by. I thought that was really cool. I was originally annoyed that we spent quite a bit of time in this library, like playing cat and mouse and hide and seek with the zombies with Arya. Initially, I was like, "Oh, come on! Like, cut back to the main battle here. Like, why are we spending this time like in a little cat and mouse chase in the library with Arya?" But now I actually like it. I think that was a good choice. A nice, like, dynamic to add to this massive battle going on. It's this quiet, very scary little, kind of cat and mouse scene. It is weird though that like all the zombies outside are like sprinting like 3 times the speed of a man can run, but when they're inside the library, they're just walking around like your classic horror zombie, like brains. like the slow ones go to the library and the fast ones stay outside. Thought it was interesting how the Red Woman wasn't spending all of her time lighting things on fire. She's like, "Here, I'll light your swords on fire." And then when they're trying to light the trench that's not sparking, she has to go out and light it. I just thought it was interesting that she wasn't spending like every possible moment. I think it would have been cool if she was always like constantly throughout the battle, like talking spells and just lighting shit on fire. I thought that would have been pretty badass little like ending for her character, just constantly be casting spells and really wearing her out. Maybe that's kind of helps when she walks away into the snow at the end of the episode and she takes off her necklace and she just like slowly starts to wither away, and it's this beautiful wide shot as you see her body like instantly turning to 300 years old or something. She like decomposes really quickly. She collapses in the snow, and it's actually a really cool shot too. I really like this shot. I see wide shots, everyone. When it's always close quartered shots, that's where you start to feel cheap, I feel like. But I really actually quite love that shot of her collapsing into the snow. Yeah, I had to make the joke that I was like, she was a White Walker all along, the way she kind of crumbles apart into dust. Also, interesting how different zombies and different White Walkers react differently to the dragon glass, and the Valyrian steel, because some of them are like exploding into dust, and then some of them are just dying like a normal body person would, which is kind of, I don't know. I guess it's fine. It's pretty nitpicky, but it's weird that some of them, like, you can stab under the jaw into the head, and they're just like bleeding out over your hand, and then they just collapse. Whereas others will crumble into dust. And the Night King guy and his guys like shatter into ice dust, whereas other ones go into dust, and some of them just, their bodies just drop. Oh yeah, the little girl from Lady Mormont. Is that her name? The girl from The Last of Us. I do love her so much in the show. She's so confident and strong. I still kind of hate her death here. Like, it's cool that she takes out a giant. I do like that, but unfortunately the circumstances are just a little weak. Like, she sees the giant and goes charging out towards the giant, but when she's charging towards the giant, she decides to scream at the top of her lungs the entire time, like, "Ah, here I come, can you hear me?" And the dragon just turns around because she's screaming and hears her, and then picks her up and then crushes her, and then decides to hold her incredibly close to his eyeball. Which, okay, he's a dumb zombie, I guess that makes sense, but why would he care? Why wouldn't he just crush her and throw her? Why does he lift her all the way up to his, like, till she's within arm's reach with a blade to his eyeball? Like, that's like holding something really close to your face. So it's just kind of stupid. It's like, well, he's the one who made himself die, not so much her in that sense. Yeah, so I kind of hate that, even though I do love the actor. She's great. I like Peter Dinklage's,
At least we're already in a crypt.
I like his little speech in the crypts, how he's like, we could be up there, we could be making a difference.
If we are up there, we might see something everyone else is missing. Something that makes a difference.
What? Remember the Battle of Blackwater? I brought us through the Mudgate.
And got your face cut in half.
And it made a difference.
And like, yeah, but he's like, I stormed the whatever at Blackgate, and he's like, yeah, and you got your face cut in half, and then he's like, and it made a difference. I just thought that was good. It's like, yeah, you never know, you could be up there, you could save someone important's life, you could see something that someone else doesn't see and turn the tide, who knows, but I just like that little speech that he's very brave and he wants to get in there. And then I forgot about the whole, they're in the crypt and the dead walkers, come back from the dead. The White Walkers are the living dead. Why are they hiding in the crypt with all the corpses? I didn't even think of that actually the whole time. Every time they were talking about the crypt, oh, are you going to be in the crypt? Are you going to be in the crypt? It just didn't even occur to me that they would come back to life, and in that sense it didn't feel so dumb this time, but it is pretty silly though to like hide in the crypts when the White Walkers are known for bringing the dead back to life. It seems like severely overlooked that no one would have talked about it or mentioned it. Well, let's go to some trivia here about the episode. As of this episode, House Mormont would seem to be extinct. Jorah and Lyanna die defending others, honoring their house words, "Here I stand," with their deaths. I didn't realize the house words were "Here I stand." In A Night of the Seven Kingdoms 2019, Jorah called Lyanna the future of our house, which could mean that they were the last surviving members of House Mormont. There is, however, a small chance that there are still surviving families members who were simply never introduced on the show. In the books, Lyanna is the youngest of 5 daughters, one of whom, Daisy, died during the wed wedding. In the last published books, 3 of her sisters, a nephew and a niece, were still alive. Maggie's fate and current whereabouts are unknown, but it is implied her second daughter, is saying that she is alive. Maybe House Mormont survives. Filming this episode required 55 nights of filming over 11 weeks, and an unknown number of day shoots on stages with roughly 750 cast and crew members. It was also a moving shoot that had to adjust with the moon. Several actors described this episode as the hardest thing they ever filmed. Maisie Williams, Arya, stated in Entertainment Weekly, quote, "Nothing can prepare you for how physically draining it is. It's night after night, and again, and it just doesn't stop. You can't get sick, and you have to look out for yourself because there's so much to do that nobody else can do. There are moments you're just broken as a human and just want to cry." Lane Glenn, the actor who plays Jorah Mormont, described it as a real test. Really miserable. You get to sleep at 7 in the morning, and when you wake in the midday, you are still so spent you can't really do anything. And then you're back. You have no life outside it. Rory McCann, the Hound, concurred, Everybody prays they never have to do this again. Glenn did add that it was only worse for the crew since, unlike the actors, they had to be on set at all times. Wow. When you have all this money, can't you take a little bit of the pressure off? It's like the nurse situation. It's like, hey, let's put in these really important roles. Let's make them all work 12-hour days every day that they work. Let's put the most mentally and physically challenging job. Let's give them the hardest hours mandatory, humanly possible. Like, get the fuck out of here. But it's crazy that they made them work all night. I wonder what the deal is with that. I mean, that's fun. I think that's fun, even though it's so hard and challenging. It's I do think that would be really fun. But I also wouldn't want to push the people too hard where they're like, I don't know, resenting you for it. When she told her boyfriend about it, he commented, should be John though, really, shouldn't it? Many viewers and to a certain extent, Kit Harington himself also shared that sentiment after previous seasons seemed to set up a final confrontation between Jon and the Night King. But there is a plausible in-universe explanation. After several encounters with him, the Night King probably realizes that Jon is the one who could most likely defeat him. This is why he actively avoids Jon. He stays mostly in the air and never attacks him head-on. He flees when Jon is perched atop the God's Wood Wall and only resorts to quick surprise attacks out of the mist. When they are finally grounded, the Night King specifically raises wights to stop Jon from coming near. He maybe even directs the undead Viserion to stop Jon. And he enters Winterfell shielded by walkers, giving only Arya a chance to come near with a stealth attack learning during the Faceless Men training. Yeah, I like that. I never felt like it had to be Jon. I wasn't disappointed by that. In fact, I like that it was whoever it could be. Yeah. It never really bothered me that it wasn't Kit, but I think what bothered me was that it was so shortly lived and he just, it was pretty easy for him to die. I hate the whole, kill the mothership and all the other, probes, drones die. It's such a cop-out, I feel like. It's like the Independence Day thing. We kill the mothership. And that actually made sense it made a bit more sense in Independence Day, but here they kind of introduced it in season 8. They're like, oh, well, if you kill one, then the others fall. Maybe it was season 7 they introduced that idea, but, it's a little weak. Hello. I was recording, yeah. I was like, I'm gonna go downstairs and the cats will leave me alone. That's okay.
Take a walk from upstairs with me.
I just thought I'd hide in there and do it. It was cozy. It's cozy on the stairs.
Is the sound okay? Is that
Yeah. No, it's carpeted. It's kind of a little recording booth almost.
Oh, nice. Okay, well, maybe the carpet would help. I wish it was all. Okay, I'm like, hello.
Okay. Game of Thrones final episode, or the Long Night Part 2. After filming a key scene from the episode, the crew was interrupted by a helicopter flying overhead. Even though the production was supposed to have government-protected airspace across the sets, no planes, no drones, no paparazzi whatsoever, the production called the Civil Aviation Authority to track down the pilot's identity, while production was in a panic that spoilers would leak from the set, but eventually turned out to be a police helicopter. It's crazy that they're like, someone's spying. Dave Hill, one of the writers of the season, stated after the series ended that they had originally planned for Jorah to survive the battle, but ultimately decided that, quote, Jorah should have the noble death he craves defending the woman he loves. Lane Glenn concurred, stating that despite an initial sense of loss, it felt right. I felt at peace with it because in some ways Jorah has been offering himself, his life, to Daenerys for 6 or 7 seasons, so that there was a completeness to it. With Jaime and Brienne fighting side by side, their swords, Widow's Wail and Oathkeeper, the two halves of Ned Stark's Valyrian steel sword, Ice, are reunited to protect Winterfell, the Stark stronghold. That's cool. David Benoff and D.B. Wise told Entertainment Weekly prior to the airing of Season 8 that they already knew back in 2013 that the final season would have to be significantly shorter than regular seasons, knowing the planned sequences for their final episodes would require much more budget than HBO could offer to give them, naming this episode in particular as one of the main examples. While writing the episode, showrunners D.B. Weiss and David Benoff intended this to be the longest battle sequence ever presented in a film or television, with the largest number of extras fighting on a real location and avoiding the use of CGI as much as possible. While preparing for the shoot, director Miguel Sapochnik tried to find a longer battle sequence in cinema and couldn't. The closest Sapochnik found was the 40-minute Battle of Helm's Deep in The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, which he studied to determine when and if the audience would get battle fatigue from too much meaningless action. Ironically, his conclusion was that the less fighting you can have in a specific sequence, the better. Yeah, I agree with that. The Valyrian steel dagger that Arya uses to kill the Night King with, saving Bran in the process, is the same dagger that was used by the Catspaw assassin who attempted to murder Bran in the King's Road 2011, soon after he was paralyzed. In the prequel series House of the Dragon, episode King of the Narrow Sea 2022, it is revealed that the dagger was originally owned by Aegon the Conqueror after he had dreamed a vision of the second coming of the White Walkers, a prophecy that he called the Song of Ice and Fire. He conquered Westeros and had this prophecy and dagger pass through his line of successors so that the Targaryen kings could prepare for the Long Night, a tradition that ended with the Mad King's death, explaining why Daenerys and her brother Viserys knew nothing of this. The dagger eventually found its way into Arya's hands, where it finally fulfills its purpose. Wow. Theon gets more absolution for the acts he committed against the Stark family in this episode, with Bran being the last to forgive him. Sansa forgave him after he saved her in Season 6, Home, 2016, and in Season 7's The Dragon and the Wolf, Jon told him, "What I can forgive, I do. You're a Greyjoy, and you're Stark." Here, Bran tells Theon he is back home, and that he's a good man, thanking him just before Theon sacrifices himself. The only remaining Stark who hasn't forgiven him is Arya. Over the course of the series, they have shared scenes a few times, but have never spoken directly with each other. That's another thing about this episode that I did not like, was that Theon, who's intelligent and, got good battle experience, just charges in with a spear or a sword, like he's jousting without a horse, and just runs right up to the Night King. And then the Night King does what 99.9% of the population would do, and just kind of steps to the side and then stabs him in the stomach or whatever. And it was just kind of like a weak suicide run. Like, why would you just charge in like that? Like, you're supposed to protect Bran, so why don't you just stay with Bran and then die gloriously or whatever, He's awaited. Yeah, his death was not very shiny. He just offed himself in a weird way. It just seemed weird. It kind of went against his whole, like, I'm gonna stand here and protect you, Bran. There were a few things Kit Harington, Jon Snow, wasn't initially happy with in this episode, but took it for what it is. Firstly, after he initially read the script for this episode and saw that Arya, not Jon, is the one who kills the Night King, Harington stated he was rather pissed off at first that it wasn't Jon killing the Night King. Harington continued by saying he would have bet it all that Jon was going to be the one because of the years of build-up. Harington accepted it, though, and was happy for Maisie Williams, who plays Arya, because her story arc comes full circle for her big moment. Lastly, according to Harington, he wished Jon would be doing more sword fighting in the war rather than flying around in the air on a dragon for most of the episode. Yeah, that does seem a little out of character that all of a sudden he's just flying around. Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. It was already implied in previous seasons that the White Walkers bring the darkness and winter with them, and it is now all but confirmed. When Jon and Daenerys try to attack the White Walkers at the tree line, they instantly summon a huge snowstorm, and when all walkers die, the night immediately dissipates. The books have also hinted that the walkers are behind the unusually long seasons in Westeros, although the author George R.R. Martin has merely stated that there is a magical reason behind the long seasons, which will be explained in the upcoming books. Melisandre uses the old Valyrian spell to flame the Dothraki swords. The English translation is, Lord of Light, cast your light upon us. Lord of Light, defend us, for the night is dark and full of terrors. When she later struggles to light the trench on fire, she keeps repeating the words, Lord of Light, defend us. The night is long and full of terrors. Weather and fire issues complicated the filming of Jorah's cinematic fight. Oh, let me try that again. Weather and fire issues complicated the filming of Jorah's climactic fight. Just before Ian Glenn was about to start rehearsing, he was informed that his wife had suffered a near-fatal brain aneurysm while rehearsing for a play. Glenn said that he was, quote, completely on the floor at the time, a total mess, and his co-player Emilia Clarke, Daenerys, sympathized deeply, having suffered a similar brain hemorrhage during season 2. She, the director and executive producer Bernadette Caulfield, immediately sent Glenn home, and he took 2 weeks off to be at her side while the other scenes were filmed. After Glenn's wife made a complete recovery, he returned to set and found that all the conditions to film his final scene had improved enough to finish it. Wow. That is crazy. I know, Daenerys and the brain hemorrhages that almost took her out. That's just nuts. 2 women, too. Is it? I don't think it's more susceptible in women, but I'm going to have to look into that. That's interesting. Scary. The episode title has multiple meanings. It refers to a mythical event that took place 8 millennia before, the Long Night, when the White Walkers invaded Westeros from the north. They brought with them an extremely long winter that covered Westeros in darkness for an entire generation. until they were driven back by an alliance of the first men and the children of the forest, who built the wall to keep them out. The title also refers to the Battle of Ice and Fire between the living and the dead at Winterfell, which lasts a night long. It is kind of too bad that it's just one night. I guess they're dealing with them for a long time, but it just seems like such a huge build-up to have it all be sorted out in one episode, you know? This is the first time that Arya and Melisandre share a scene since The Climb 2013, in which Melisandre told her, "We will meet again." The longest episode of the show at 82 minutes, surpassing the 81-minute runtime of the previous record holder, The Dragon and the Wolf 2017. Given its minimal amount of dialogue, it may also have the lowest word average per minute of screen time in the entire series. Similarly to Blackwater 2012, The Watchers on the Wall 2014, this episode takes place entirely in one location, Winterfell, and covers a single battle without including any parallel storylines. It is the fourth single location episode after the two aforementioned episodes, and its non-battle preceding episode, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. HBO had Vladimir Furdik, the Night King, come to set in Spain, where the series films some scenes set in King's Landing, for the benefit of the paparazzi, to trick the public into thinking the White Walker storyline would extend there. Huh? Interesting. The art of war. Make the enemy think you're somewhere else. Anyway. And in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, director Miguel Sapochnik said that he was personally working on this episode as a whole since around June 2017. He further explained, "I'm shooting for 7.5 months, which is like 130 days, which is longer than most of the big movies that get made. So in terms of the amount of work, it's been 6 to 7 days a week, 16 to 18 hours a day, and yeah, it's a lot. I knew that was a lot when I came on board." That's insane. And they're planning it for so long, and still they just sent the Dothraki to go die. I mean, what else could you do with them, I guess? Except have an epic, flanking maneuver when they're charging in, so there's at least, two sides being smushed in when they're attacking the front. Back in 2016, after the success of Hard Home, Battle of the Bastards, and The Winds of Winter, David Benoff and D.B. Wise asked director Miguel Sapochnik to come back to direct an episode in Season 7, and later on in Season 8 too. Sapochnik told them he would not be able to work on Season 7 and 8 both, so they insisted that if he had to choose one, it'd be Season 8. Even after the scripts were ready for Season 8, and the original plan for Sapochnik directing episodes 3, 4, and 5 didn't pull through, he preferred to do episodes 4 and 5 and drop episode 3, but it was David and Dan who insisted he direct this specific episode by all means, since they believed he was the most fit director for the job, and the biggest, most ambitious, most logistically complicated battle in the entire series. This episode was both Maisie Williams and Alfie Allen's submissions in the supporting actors categories at the 2019 Emmy Awards, Maisie's second nomination for the series and Allen's first. Arya uses a similar trick to kill the Night King as she did to surprise Brienne during their sparring session at the Spoils of War, distracting her with an attack from above and then surprising her with her dagger stab from below. There are several callbacks to Season 1. In The King's Road 2011, Caitlin and Robb were in the Godswood discussing the Valyrian dagger that was used to try and kill Bran. When they speculate the Lannisters' involvement, Theon pledges to stand by them if a war is coming, which prompts Maester Luwin to ask him if he thinks that a battle will break out in the Godswood. In this episode, the dagger plays a pivotal role when war indeed reaches the Godswood, with Theon standing by the Starks as promised. Bran is sitting in his wheelchair with Theon defending him from the undead army with the bow and arrow, as in turn reminiscent of The Wolf and the Lion, where Bran was sitting at a desk with Master Luwin, being tested on his knowledge of Westerosi politics, while Theon was practicing his archery skills behind him. 8 seasons later, Bran has basically become the are the keeper of Westeros, shared knowledge, and Theon, a master archer who never misses his mark. Sam, Ghost, and Rhaegal survive the battle despite not being shown at the end of the episode. Drogon can be seen mourning Jorah together with Daenerys, confirming again that dragons are not mindless creatures and understand the concept of death. This is the same in the books, where their intelligence is said to be different from human intellect and more in tune with nature or magic. The director of the episode revealed in an interview that the plans for the Battle of Winterfell initially included a huge pack of dire wolves attacking the undead dragon. As a callback to the spiritual link between House Stark and dire wolves, the idea was scrapped. Yeah, that could have looked pretty cheesy. Sansa says to Arya that she doesn't know how to use the knife, so Arya responds by saying stick them with the pointy end. This is the same advice that Jon gave Arya in The King's Road 2011 when he gave her needle before they left for Castle Black. The line is a fan favorite from the books and also used as the title of The Pointy End, where Arya accidentally kills her first victim with needle. 24 hours after the episode's initial airing, Twitter announced it broke the record with the most tweeted about TV episode of all time, with 7.8 million tweets. In the previous episode, Tyrion told his drinking company that he thought he would survive the upcoming battle, based on the battlefield experience between them. Indeed, all people present, Tyrion, Jaime, Brienne, Davos, Podrick, and Tormund all survived the battle. Composer Ramin Djawadi won his second Emmy Award for Outstanding Music Composition for a drama series for this episode. I gotta say, I didn't really notice the music. I wasn't thinking about it, so that's interesting. I'm gonna have to revisit it and maybe give that a listen just out of respect for his award. Edison Tollett has always been concerned about burning the dead to prevent them from becoming whites, and now his watch has ended. 2013, he was standing vigil when the body of Brother Bannon was burned in the Mountain and the Viper. Just before the Battle of the Castle Black, he said, "Whoever dies last, be a good lad and burn the rest of us. Once I'm done with this world, I don't want to come back." In Oathbreaker 2016, after Jon was resurrected and Ed wondered if it was still him, Jon told him to hold off on burning my body for now. When Jon later executed the mutineers, Ed said, "We should burn the bodies." In A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, he said, "Last man left, burn the rest of us." His concerns proved to be correct, as Ed and more people who got killed are reanimated as whites. Reanimated, I do like that word for it. Beric's sacrifice is being compared to Hodor's death in The Door, as he blocks the way to protect a Stark and their protector from a horde of whites. Richard Dormer jokingly called it the barricade. As Beric holds off the whites in the hallway, he takes on a Christ-like crucifixion pose, an apt symbol of sacrifice and resurrection. Although it's barely audible, his last words to Arya are, "Live." With his seventh and final death, Beric has extended his life far beyond his life in the books, where he finds the murdered Catelyn's corpse after the Red Wedding and willingly sacrifices himself to resurrect her body. The reanimated Catelyn then becomes Lady Stoneheart, a monstrously mutilated and inhuman person who leads the Brotherhood on a ruthless quest to murder the Freys. Interestingly, in the series, not Catelyn, but Arya does the latter, as Lady Stoneheart was omitted from the show, and it is also for Catelyn's daughter rather than Catelyn herself that Beric sacrifices himself. Ironically, Beric dies the last time while saving the Hound, who caused his previous death in Kissed by Fire. That's crazy. Lady Stark turns into a monstrosity and goes on a revenge mission. That's dope. Damn, I wish we got to see that. That would have been great. I love the actor who plays Catelyn Stark. Much criticism was directed at the lack of major character deaths in this episode. Yeah, I felt that too. With only supporting characters dying while too many of the regular characters magically survive the onslaught against all odds. Plot armor, yeah, called it. However, factually, this episode had more reoccurring character deaths than any one previous battle-centered episodes on the show yet. Dolores Ed, Beric, Linnea Mormont, Coho, the Dothraki Bloodrider, Jorah, Theon, the Night King, and Melisandre off-screen. Alice Karstark dies as well. That's a good point. Good point. Okay, I think that kind of just put me in my place a little bit. I guess quite a few people did die, didn't they? I guess my problem was that they showed people about to die. You know, they would have been dead if it wasn't for plot armor, like Brienne being swarmed twice in the episode. Just don't write them into a situation where they should not have survived, basically. Would have been the solution to that. But yeah, quite a few people did die, hey? Two characters who have been on Arya's death list die in this episode, Beric and Melisandre, placed on the list after the former sold Gendry to the latter in the climb. However, they appear to have been taken off at some point, as neither was mentioned when Arya recited the list in The House of Black and White. She believed that the Hound had died from his injuries he took in The Children, 2014, but admitted in Oathbreaker that she had already taken him off the list prior to that. Theon could have been on the list due to his betrayal of the Starks, but never was, as Arya never learned of his involvement before he redeemed himself. Arya's list now has two people left, Cersei and the Mountain. Payne used to be on it, but was removed after actor Wilco Johnson was diagnosed with cancer, and his character was also retired from the show. Fucking cancer, man. Melisandre tells Davos that there is no need to execute her, referencing his promise to do so in the Winds of Winter. If she ever returned to the north, near the end, Melisandre asks Arya, What do we say to the god of death? To which the latter replies, not today. This is something that Arya was taught by Syrio Forel in A Golden Crown, who told her, there is only one god, and his name is death, and there is only one thing we say to death, not today. Arya later becomes one of the faceless men who worship the many-faced god who represents the many deities of death. Beric said in Beyond the Wall 2017, death is the enemy. The first enemy and the last. The enemy always wins, and we still need to fight him. Since the Night King is considered to be death incarnate, Beric's sacrifice thus allows Arya to defy death both symbolically and physically. When Bran exclaims, I'm going to go now, he wargs into the Ravens to try and bait the Night King into the battle. In Eastwatch 2017, he did the same to scout Beyond the Wall, and due to carrying the Night King's mark, the latter quickly spotted him. Bran succeeds, and the plan discussed in the prior episode to lure the Night King out into the open and try to kill Bran is fulfilled, ending in the Night King's death. This also refutes a fan theory that the Night King was Bran himself, who used green sight to visit the past, and inadvertently got stuck while warging into the Night King. That is a cool idea, though. He does kind of look like the Night King too, doesn't he? According to the showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, they knew Arya was going to be the one to kill the Night King for over 3 years. Benioff explained further that Jon has typically been the hero for most of the big moments of the series and stated, for this particular moment, they didn't feel it seemed right to have Jon kill the Night King, but have an unlikely and surprising character like Arya do it instead. Nevertheless, this turned out to be one of the more controversial plot twists in the series, while many fans voicing their disappointment that Jon was robbed of the deserved victory. Yeah, I guess it's a bit more poetic that he would have done it, but whatever. Arya killing the Night King may actually resolve several old mysteries and prophecies. In The Climb 2013, Melisandre is puzzled to learn that Thoros was able to resurrect Beric no less than 6 times, which suggests that he is kept alive for a specific reason. She also tells Arya that she sees a darkness in her, and in that darkness, eyes staring back, brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes, eyes she'll shut forever. It would seem now that Beric was spared from death so that he could rally the Hound to protect Arya, and ultimately give his own life for her, that she could kill the blue-eyed White Walkers. Less than 36 hours after the episode premiered, with around 2,000 reviews, the episode had more user reviews than the series itself got in 8 years, with opinions divided from most positive extreme to the very opposite. The shot of the Night King falling off his dragon to the ground was the very last scene that Vladimir Frodo shot for the series. Because he died on impact, I'm just joking. Wow, so lots of fun. This episode won 5 Emmy Awards for Outstanding Single Camera Picture Editing for a Drama Series, Outstanding Sound Mixing, Outstanding Music Composition, Outstanding Makeup, Outstanding Sound Editing. Wow. Oh, here's an interesting comment. I like this. I'll probably end on this one. Military historians and experts have spotted several tactical mistakes made during this episode. The Dothraki were wasted during the frontal assault, as lightly armored cavalry troops are typically used best when they support a central infantry charge by flanking the enemy force, especially when they have hit an end. Granted, their frontal assault had actually worked during the Battle of Goldrad in the Spoils of War, but they were not used to fighting. They're not used to fighting in the cold, while the Army of the Death simply boasted far superior numbers and strength, was practically invisible at first, and couldn't be scared into a panic. During a siege, it is ill-advised to ride out and meet the enemy head-on in an open field, especially in full darkness. Instead, obstacles and defenses should have been placed throughout the field to impede the undead army charge, and funnel them into a smaller front, such as the trenches should have been placed much further away from the castle and lit before the whites arrived. The dragons could have then laid waste to the whites as they came to a halt. The Unsullied and Dothraki should have been positioned behind the defenses rather than in the front, picking off any whites that still made it past. Retreating inside the castle also would have been much easier this way. Better use could have been made of the long-range weapons. The trebuchets should have been behind the trenches. They became useless once the whites reached them, and used long before any charge was started. Archers would have also been much more effective at the front rather than on the walls. Yeah, so true. Why didn't they do that? Ineffective leadership. Unlike the Army of the Dead, the living didn't have a central leader who could oversee and coordinate the battle and amend plans accordingly. Jon and Daenerys were torn between burning the whites and going after the Night King due to the blizzard, which cut off effective communication with their troops, and lack of clear backup plan. Section leaders like Brienne and Jorah had Grey Worm should never have been at the front of their forces either, because if they fall, there was no one to lead the rest. The wall defensive could have been improved by putting dragon glass spikes on top of or pouring flaming oil down the castle walls that have effectively deterred climbing whites from going over. There should also have been a better plan for when the undead breached the castle wall, since this forced them into a bottleneck. They could have been finished off more effectively if the soldiers had planned for this eventually. Man, that's so true. That would have been so much more cool if they thought things through instead of just chatting away. Some experts had conceded that the leaders of Winterfell did as well as they could, given they only had a few days to mount their defenses. Furthermore, they had little experience with battles of this scope and nature. Even seasoned strategists like Tywin, Robb, and Stannis would have struggled against such a huge supernatural army, which normal rules don't apply. Yeah, but they still could have done the trench thing and not killed off their entire Dothraki forces. Anyway, well, I think I'm going to end it there. There's so much more. But yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, if you haven't seen seasons 1 through 8 of Game of Thrones since the TV premieres, I highly recommend giving it a nice solid binge watch, because I had a great time with this. Anyway, thanks for watching, and you'll catch me in the next episode.